even with Rock Camp, there's moments that you don't enjoy it, and that's okay, and you have to stay mindful. So it's like, instead of do what you love, I've heard do what you do. What you're doing, just stay mindful and be present and finish it and do a good job, rather than like, I think I should be this or that, you know what I mean? So that is a good reality check sometimes for me, when it's like, oh, I'm not really loving this, like, is this actually my passion? Like, I don't know, I'm not actually sure, but I'm learning a lot, and I'm gonna keep at it, and until, you know, maybe like eventually you could move on, but like right now this is what I'm working on. I'm not gonna like go, like, you know, I mean, to get too flustered about whether it's my passion. So that's been a good reality check. Like, I think it is still good to have the why. It is still important, like, but it's not the be all and end all that I think everyone thinks it should be.
Hi everyone, welcome to episode 3 part 2 with Tiffanie Tri. If you missed part 1, we discussed Girls Rock Ottawa, which is a community organization that empowers women and girls through music and providing them a space to play, and talked a little bit about entrepreneurship. This part will be more on the front of relationship building and mentorship, and how being part of this community organization has allowed you to develop those skills and networks. So thank you for being with us again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay. So if you could speak to how important building relationships and building your network was for growing Girls Rock Ottawa.
Yeah, it's been so important, the relationship building aspect of this organization, because everything is based on some sort of partnership. Because when you're not-for-profit or community-based, it's everything you do has to be in working with someone else or working with another organization. So I would say that the most important aspects are finding organizations that are aligned with yours, and then starting to build that relationship. And that can take months, it can take, or years, it can take a really long time. And I would say we come from it from a very authentic place. Helps a lot. It's like when you're going to talk to someone, just go and provide value to them and say, you know, this is where, you know, first of all, this is where I see our organizations aligning, and this is how we can kind of help each other. I don't ever like approaching anyone and just asking for something without being able to explain how we can work together, or how our organizations can help each other grow. So I find that helps a lot. One example I could give, like a real life example, would be this year for our Girls Rock Camp, which has happened in November 2017. We partnered with the National Arts Center to host the showcase, and that was huge for us. That was a really, really big departure, because we had been previously hosting our showcases at community centers, which the sound wasn't quite as good, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's not going to be the same as the National Arts Center, right? Sure. And I remember we had talked about it in the board, and someone had said, oh, I don't think we can because they're unionized or something, and we said, oh, okay, and we dropped it. And I was at an event as part of the Junos this year, and it was like, they were talking about Ottawa being a music city and how to develop Ottawa as a music city. And like, you know, the mayor was there, some city councilors, I think Catherine McKenna, like there was a bunch of city and managers and stuff like that there, and a lot of music industry people there. And they were talking about how, like, you know, we're going to do all this stuff for Ottawa, and it's going to be a music city, and it's going to be great. And I was like, that's great, but as someone who's on the ground trying to do these events and trying to make it accessible, you know, they're talking about like, we're going to develop audiences and starting young and all this stuff, and you're like, I love the vision, but the reality right now is that as a community organization that is doing the work on the ground, we have our boots on the ground, and just the challenges that we face in terms of like finding accessible venues, in terms of like physically accessible, as well as safety, how accessible it is in safety terms, as well as cost, you know what I mean? It's been so difficult that so I was like sitting there, I'm like, you know, I was kind of feeling slightly not miffed, but like I don't really want to give some real talk here right now, but in a diplomatic way. And my colleague, the other board member, was like, you should just go say something. Yeah. I was like, you know, like, you know, when you're about in class and you're like, I want to say something, but I don't know, you know, and she's like, just say it. And so I went and I said my piece, and it was diplomatic, but I did get my point across that it's actually very challenging. And like, just gave an example of an event that we had run that if we had not had grant money for it, we would have lost money.
Okay.
And I said that. And, you know, when we're being charged, you know, X hundreds of dollars to rent a venue, like it's just not sustainable. And how do we also make it accessible, right? What we had talked about earlier, like we want to make it accessible, especially for youth or low income or underrepresented audiences to come. So I'm not going to charge
an insane amount
exactly.
of money. Yeah.
And then how do we then cover our costs to keep doing this? Yeah. So I talked about that, and just to like give it a realistic point of view. And then it was crazy because I think like Kathleen Edwards was on the panel. She's like, you can have the event at an event at Quitters Coffee. Like we're like, I would love to. So also call us, Kathleen. But then some people from the NAC were there, and they're like, you could have it at the NAC. I was like, what? And then a couple other people were there, and like, we would be happy to host. It was crazy. Like I felt so overwhelmed but grateful because of all the like help that people were giving and the support that people wanted to give. So part of it is not being afraid to speak up and ask for help. The moment we did, rather than being trying to figure it out ourselves, and just kind of presenting the problem that we had, the response was overwhelming. And so we followed up with the NAC, and they're like, we would love to, and we could see where the organizations align.
Of course.
And obviously that also comes from a place where we've spent 10 years doing what we're doing, and developing our work. So we have our expertise and our history and our branding behind us. So we're solid on that front. So I can give an offer and be valuable. So having those two things is very important. Like you can't just speak up if you don't really if you haven't done the work. There's that aspect as well. So that was so cool for our campers because they got to do a professional sound check. They could hear themselves, and when you're a performer, you can hear yourself, and you can hear where you might not be right, but you were more confident. And so I think the showcase that we had this year, that I'm glad you could make it to, it was amazing because of the venue, and also it told the participants, the campers, that hey, we take you seriously, and that you deserve to be here
on this stage.
Absolutely. There's a spot for you, and that's really important. And the people at the NAC get it, and that was really awesome. So that's just one example.
But I mean, I took a few things from that. So yes, making sure that your voice is heard. Because what if you hadn't stepped up to the plate and said something like, this is the context, and this is how, like, what our actual experience is. Who knows what would have happened? Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't have had the NAC this year, I'll tell you that. But why is it that these things weren't available to you guys before?
I know.
Before that, is it just lack of awareness?
Lack of awareness, and I think lack of understanding of the challenges that organizations like us face, or I think a little bit of both. Probably, so it's all linked to awareness. They're not really sure of the work, or they don't know the work that we're doing, maybe because they're not the audience, you know, because we are working with underrepresented and communities and youth and stuff like that. So that could be part of it. And so then the way I see it, like, it is my job to make our brand and our organization get out there. So that's been what I hope to do, and that's part of like coming to events, going to networking events where I honestly feel sometimes very uncomfortable. It's not like my scene, it feels like, but I'm like, no, I have to. It's my responsibility to go and present and be that person that someone can talk to, because you never know what can happen
and who you can meet.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, and that's a great example for what can happen when you're in this was an event that you spoke out at, right? So my heart was like blah, 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 blah. But I mean, you're speaking to the right people, so knowing who to express those challenges to is incredibly valuable as well.
And like knowing how to be diplomatic, because like, I mean, the mayor was there. Like you can't just go and complain. You have to go and speak from a point of like, this is my experience and this is the expertise that we bring. So it's like so you have to be able to present yourself well and communicate well too. And also you're not going to get a lot of time in a forum like that. So got to get your points across really, really quickly. So just working on your like verbal communication is very good too. Like even though when your heart is pounding in your chest, you're like, why am I talking right now? But yeah, so that's
really like refining your pitch.
Exactly.
And knowing what you guys are about, which is great when you're constantly going to events and meeting people and building your network. So these networks that you developed out of this event, I mean, I met you at a networking event as well, and I was really interested in your story, which is why I wanted you on the podcast. So how has that piece been important in terms of growth, and how do you cultivate relationships?
Yeah, well, an example from the event that we met was it was a United Way fundraiser, and I went, and once again, networking is not really my favorite thing in the entire world, and but I try to go to these things and just go and be true to who you are. Like, I'm not going to be that person that's going around the room working the room. That's not my personality, and
whatever
that's okay.
That
right, whatever that means, right? But it's just go, and sometimes it means just connect. If you've connected one or two people, for me that's enough. Like, that's my standard, and that's okay for me. And I'm like, I don't need to have talked to every single person, but I want to talk to people who I feel like I have made a connection with, and it's genuine. I always want it to be genuine, because otherwise it just doesn't feel right to me. So I actually at that event, I met, I spoke to two females, two girls who work at the owners of Victoire, which is a local fashion store on Wellington. They also have
in Ottawa?
In Ottawa. They have a location in Toronto now too, but Regine and Katie are amazing, and they're these like awesome like boss ladies, and they're like so cool, and they have their store is amazing, and it has a lot of local and Canadian indie designers, so like, and they're all about female empowerment, and they actually have connections to Ottawa Rock Camp for Girls, and it's which was the former iteration of Girls Rock Ottawa. And I had actually, the funny story was that I had actually heard of Ottawa Rock Camp for Girls from a t-shirt that Victoire sold at their store like 5 or 6 years ago, and so I was like, I have to go meet them and tell them the story. And so I went and talked to them, and I said, this is so cool, this is like, we're kind of closing the loop on that, and like, because 5 or 6 years later I helped kind of run this organization, and I was like, it would be great if we could like maybe sell our merch in your stores again, because clearly that helped, and you never know where something like that can start. I just saw the t-shirt, and then now look what happens. So I brought that up, and they were like, oh, that's great. And then they came to the showcase for the Rock Camp for Girls like a week or two later, and then afterwards they were happy to we started up a partnership where for Black Friday, which just happened a week ago, they did a fundraiser for us where any item over $20 that was purchased, they would give us $5.
Yes.
Because that helps. It's great for them, because they feel like they can make a difference on a day that is very mass consumerism, which they're not completely, fans of. And and the amount of money they can raise for an organization like us, that's a huge impact. So they wanted to feel that too, and they have the connections with the music, and they have a former teacher that's working for them, and a former Ottawa Rock camper that works there. So they all wrote blog posts about what that experience meant to them. So it was just like this beautiful like combination of like fashion and music and community and empowerment. It was just, and it came together so organically, and it happened really fast within like 2 weeks. So that's what happens when you go there and you're like not trying to like sell anyone on anything, but you're just there. And I just wanted to tell them that story because I thought it was really important, and then it kind of just grew from there.
That's honestly, when you said going to events, and yes, being authentic, being true to who you are, but also not having the intention to meet as many people as possible, right? Like connecting with a few people, but making those interactions very meaningful.
Exactly. Quality over quantity every time.
But like, and when you're developing these relationships and seeking out ways on how we can both benefit from a relationship, when you are collaborating, there are a lot of linkages between the sponsorship that you just recently got. So what would be a tip for those who struggle building professional relationships? And, like your comment about not necessarily feeling comfortable going out to networking events. I know there are a lot of people, including myself, who may feel the same way.
Yeah.
So what would you say to those who struggle building professional relationships?
Well, first of all, just on the networking front, don't feel like you have to be that person. Like the idea of what some people think networking is, which is like to go around and schmooze or like get to know everyone and collect all these business cards. Like you don't need to do that. Just go there and be open. I think if you go there and be open to who you could meet, that's already a good place to start. And then see what happens from there and just have a good time otherwise. You know what I mean? And then do your homework so that like if you don't know yet how you and another organization or another person can help each other, figure it out, or like at least come up with some sort of plan that you can present, or at least an idea in your head that you can present. Like, yes, I wanted to tell the story to Victoria, but I knew that it already fit. Like I've been there enough times, I've been to the store, like, you know what I mean? So you can kind of see what they're all about. So like, if you don't already know them or something, do the homework. Don't ever pitch something to someone when you haven't done the homework. It's awkward and you'll feel kind of like, oh God, what am I talking about? So do your homework and be prepared. Especially if there is someone you do want to talk to, like do the homework but also come at it from a place of like, I really do like what you're doing and provide the value and stuff.
Because I think that resonates with a lot of people, right? When, like, let's say someone were to approach me about some sort of collaboration, having the feeling that that they have done their research and are not coming from a place where I want to sell you something, or if the fit is not there, you can sense that immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. And also just coming, like, I think it always helps to be like, I want to collaborate or partner with you because, and give those reasons, and it's usually complimentary, so that's always a good place to start, right? And you should feel complimentary towards that organization if you want to partner with them. Like, if you don't, why do you want to even partner with them? So give them the reasons. Don't hold back. Like, don't hold your cards too close to your chest, and just be like, no, I really like why you're doing X, Y, and Z, you know, and because we're doing this, I could see where we can like grow this cause more
together.
Exactly.
With like multiple people working on it, and because that's where I think that's where the magic happens, right? Like there's only so much you can do on your own, but whenever you're sort of planting seeds everywhere with like-minded organizations, that's amazing.
And not everything's going to work out, and that's okay too.
100%.
But then the ones that do can be amazing. So so that's what I would say. Just be authentic. Like, don't worry too much about what you should be doing or like how many business cards. That stuff is like, I think that's the old like traditional way of networking that is not proven to be that helpful anyways, and that not a lot of people enjoy. So I think when you have the expertise and like it'll come naturally, it'll come way more naturally.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing your experiences surrounding networking and building relationships. So I have 2 more questions left. The first one would be, what are some of the books that you've read? One or 2 books that you've read that speak to entrepreneurship or building relationships?
Oh man, I probably have a couple. One that I think was good was Cal Newport's So Good They Can't Ignore You. Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, he actually debunks the myth of the fact that you need your job to be what you're passionate about, which seems counterintuitive to everything that we've just talked about today, right? Like, follow your why or your passion. But at the same time, just following your passion might not lead you to where you think you want to be, because first of all, what exactly is your passion? Is this kind of nebulous thing? And what if you like a lot of things, like you're passionate about a lot of things, or you're well-rounded, which is a good thing. But he says what people actually become passionate about something when they're able to learn skills or develop skills in something they feel is important and is providing value. Providing a difference. So it's not enough, basically, it's not enough to be passionate about something. People are passionate about stuff all the time that they don't complete. You need to also, you also need to be in a place where you can develop the skills. And another, like on the same line, it's like I find sometimes when people are too focused on like my job has to be something I'm passionate about, it creates like anxiety of like, oh God, I don't love this right now, maybe I need to quit. Well, like, actually you just need to spend more time honing that skill set, and then when you're able to develop it, then you feel more comfortable and you've mastered something. That's when you actually start to love it. And also it takes you away from mindfulness. A lot of times people are like, well, I'm not loving this, which even if the things you're most passionate about, like even with rock camp, there's moments that you don't enjoy it, and that's okay, and you have to stay mindful. So it's like, instead of do what you love, I've heard do what you do. What you're doing, just stay mindful and be present and finish it and do a good job, rather than like, I think I should be this or that, you know what I mean? So that is a good reality check sometimes for me, when it's like, oh, I'm not really loving this, like, is this actually my passion? Like, I don't know, I'm not actually sure, but I'm learning a lot, and I'm gonna keep at it, and until, you know, maybe like eventually you could move on, but like right now this is what I'm working on. I'm not gonna like go, like, you know what I mean, to get too flustered about whether it's my passion. So that's been a good reality check. Like, I think it is still good to have the why, it is still important, like, but it's not the be all and end all that I think everyone thinks it should be.
Because I think it's a difficult subject to wrap your head around, especially like as a young person, when you've not, like, you haven't really come into yourself, and there's always questions about, why am I here, or am I doing work that is important and of value? Am I in a place where I'm happy and doing, like, accomplishing my life's work? And people want it right now and quick and fast, and are not willing to put in the work or whatever it takes to get there. So that's because there's also a lot of times you can't see something until a lot of times it takes so long for you to see progress. But if you quit after the first 6 months, you'll never see it. I think it's like a Steve Jobs quote. He says, like, you can only figure out your path when you look backwards. In hindsight. So I'm totally paraphrasing. So please, he didn't actually say it like that. I'm sorry, Steve. He's rolling in his grave. He's just like, that is not what I said, Tiffanie. But there's that, and there's also another one that's really good is Adam Grant. Have you heard of him? Yes,
Adam Grant is wonderful. So he does a lot of work with Sheryl Sandberg. But I liked his books.
They co-authored Option B.
Yeah, I have not read Option B, but I have read Give and Take, which is awesome, because so the premise of Give and Take by Adam Grant is, okay, who do you think does the best in workplace relationships, and who does the worst? And based on 3 types of people: givers, takers, and matchers. Who does the best and who does the worst? So who do you think would do the worst
in a workplace setting? Givers.
Yes. Who does the best?
Takers.
So yes, that's what I thought too. And he says, actually, so the worst is givers, but the best is also givers. So he's like, what type of giver are you?
Okay.
So don't just give and give and give and give until you have nothing left. Be a giver, but have boundaries. Is kind of what
standards.
Yeah, exactly, and having standards, because like at the same time there's a nuanced difference between a giver with boundaries versus a matcher. A matcher you can feel when it's tit for tat, and it, you know what I mean, like they only want something from you if you can give them something, and that doesn't feel good either. But if you're a giver and generally am trying to, you know, be generous with yourself and exactly, but at the same time have standards. If someone's taking up too much of your time, you're allowed to say, well, no, like, I have to finish my job, you know, and I have to self-care, and I have to look after myself as well. And or like giving on a more efficient scale. So if you're someone who does mentorship, instead of maybe you're doing too many one-on-ones, do a lunch and learn. Exactly. So he gives examples like that. So I think that's very useful. And then another one of his books is The Originals. And he talks about, that's the one I found really cool, because he talks about, like, you know, the media likes to spin those stories, like, or like present all those success stories of like, oh, you know, this guy who's working in his garage, or he quit his like government job to like pursue his passion, full time, and then it worked out. And you only hear those stories, but he's at this, like, if you look at it on a more comprehensive level, a lot of people do that on their side, like their side hustle, and they wait for it, they're patient with it until it gets to a point where it's profitable, then they might quit their day job. Like, you don't have to quit your day job to do something that you're passionate about.
Sure.
And that's really nice to hear, because then it takes away this anxiety of like, oh my god, am I doing the right thing? Because like I haven't quit my job to like follow my passion. You're like, no, it's okay to be in a stable spot. Like, I still have my day job while I'm doing Girls Rock Ottawa, but that lets me let Girls Rock Ottawa, the organization, grow in a sustainable way rather than forcing it to become profitable when it's not there yet.
And these things take time.
Exactly. So then it can happen slowly and more sustainably. So yeah, and also ways to, like, if you want to be outspoken, like how can you do it if you're within an organization and you want to be like, you know, making changes internally, how can you do it in a way that protects you as well? So like he talks about that type of stuff, and I found that was a useful book as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. One thing that stood out was about giving, and giving from a place where your cup is full, because we can only give so much. And if we don't take the time to self-care, and I love this topic so much, but if we don't take the time to work on ourselves, we cannot give in a place that, you know, when you're considering the long term. You may be able to do it now, but can my impact be as big as as possible?
What good are you if you're burnt out? You know what I mean? Like, if you're so stressed, and like our society tends to be like really like the idea of being busy, and it's sometimes become a status thing of I'm so busy. Well, okay, go ahead and be busy, because I know for myself personally, I need time to just be by myself, and it's okay to have done nothing for a weekend or for a day. You know what I mean? Because that you're actually recharging. I know that works for me, and that's actually based on another book, Quiet, by Susan Cain, about introverts. I was like, oh my god, I'm normal. Thank you, Susan. Like, I'm not weird. I'm just introverted, and doesn't mean that I'm shy or weird. It's just that I recharge by being quiet. You know, so
figuring out what works best for you, because a lot of these techniques, they may work for some, but we're individuals, and our experiences are different. So.
And so I guess the final book would be Drive. Have you read Daniel Pink? That one's a really good one in terms of like what actually motivates people at their jobs or whatever. And it's not money, is what he realizes, and it's more just having autonomy and feeling like it's going towards something important, you know. So he talks about that. So that was that's a really good one, especially if you're managing people. I find that that's a good one. Like, so that's why I like definitely when I'm working with teams or young people coming into our organization, I try more and more to give them the autonomy to do what they want to do, and be like, you can run with it and just check in with me and we're good, you know. So so that's a really good book as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what's your why when you wake up in the morning? I know we talked a lot about passion, not necessarily like making that clear, because you've obviously expressed a different but when it comes to your job and your volunteer and like volunteer work and community engagement, what gets you up in the morning?
I think I would have to say I want to see more representation from from minority groups. That drives me, I think, in everything, like with Rock Camp and my regular job, because you just don't see a lot of females of color or other gender, you know what I mean, like and like, you know, or two-spirit or non-binary people of color especially. Like, there's not a lot of representation for us, and just the amount of times you've heard that, like, I didn't think it was possible until I saw, you know, someone do it. Like, and I think about myself as a kid, like, you know, as a teenager, you didn't have anyone who looked like you in culture, and it's so important because then you actually feel like it's possible. And it's also important just in terms of like really minor things of like whether beauty standards or, you know what I mean, like anything like that. Just to know that the way you look is okay because it's reflected in the images that like popular culture
that we see every day.
Exactly. There's so many images out there, and so part of me is just like any way that I can insert a tiny part of our organization or whatever and change those images a little bit, I'm happy to do that. And that drives me even at work, because sometimes you're like, I don't actually want to manage people. It's really hard. And, you know, but the way I see it is like, if you can keep moving up, or like getting authority or increased autonomy and authority at work, and you can bring up more and more people that are underrepresented and or don't have some of the privileges that other groups do. That drives me. It's like, okay, keep working at it. It kind of sucks sometimes, but like if you can do
Bigger
that,
picture.
exactly. So it's always like, what can you do? Like it's long-term gain rather than the short term. It sucks sometimes. You're like, I don't want to do this, but if you can, that would probably be what drives me.
That's amazing. It's inspiring.
And
I feel like we connect a lot in that space. So thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you for being part of this episode.
And keep doing what you're doing. I just want to say, like, it's amazing because you are creating space for voices that often aren't heard, and I wish you all the best. You're going to do a great job.
Thank you so much, Tiffany.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for listening to episode 3. We hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.